Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer, where we will be discussing all the latest news and gossip from around the Premier League, the EFL and the rest of Europe. As usual, I'm joined by football broadcaster and writer and just the man in the know really, Dean Jones, to talk about all the speculation on the grapevine, not just on the managerial front, but also on the player front. Hello, Dean. Hope you had a good weekend.
Hello, Pete. Yeah, very good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thank you. To say a week is a long time in politics, that's definitely the case in America after the last week. But I think it's pretty much true also of football. Last week, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was under all sorts of pressure after two disappointing results, but he's bounced back and got a big win at Everton at the weekend, which he normally does when he's under pressure. He always seems to get a result. While the hero from Old Trafford last weekend, Mikel Arteta, is the zero this week with a really shock 3-0 home defeat to Aston Villa, just to increase the pressure on him, with Arsenal languishing in mid-table as well. So sums up football right now. It's very hard to predict. So many strange results in this Premier League season so far as well. And talking of surprises probably in the Premier League, I think we'll have to start with Sheffield United. Chris Wilder, I don't think anybody could have predicted 8 games into the season the Blades would have 1 point, sitting rock bottom of the table. But for Chris Wilder, it seems he's gone under the radar really, with managers under pressure. Everybody's been talking about Slaven Bilic, Scott Parker at Fulham being possibly the first Premier League managers to lose a job. Chris Wilder's as big as 11-1 to be the first manager to go. And looking at their form probably after restart, it's not been very good, Dean, by any stretch of the imagination. What do you put that down to?
I think just the fundamentals of what made Sheffield United so good last season. I mean, you've got to remember they were punching above their weight, and I think that does always cause problems in the second season, because you've got this new expectation to live up to. And let's face it, Sheffield United were always going to find it difficult. But they were a really good team last season. This time around, haven't been able to keep possession like they were last time around, and discipline has been so important in their success. And if it becomes an end-to-end game, I just feel like Sheffield United aren't going to win those matches. They don't want to be chasing all over the park. They want to know exactly how the game's going to unfold. And there have been key injuries as well. Players like O'Connell and Fleck have been a big miss. But look, they took 13 points from the big Premier League clubs last season. This time around, they've lost to Arsenal, they've lost to Liverpool, they've lost to Man City. Now they've lost to Chelsea. They're also losing to the teams around them. So there is a big concern at Sheffield United about where this season's heading. There's a feeling from people I've spoken to that they just lack that bite and tenacity in the centre of the park. I think when you are a club like Sheffield United that aren't one of the huge clubs, you can very quickly lose confidence and begin to doubt yourself. And I think that the biggest job for Chris Wilder over this international break is finding a way to kind of raise belief and morale within that squad and make them believe that they can be a great team again. I think the reason that they really are in trouble is that they've got 0 wins from 8 so far. That has to be a big worry. I mean, usually you need 10 wins to stay in the Premier League. So they've got 30 games left to get 10 wins when they haven't got one so far. Like that's a big ask. Home to West Ham next, though, then away to West Brom. There's hope there, and I think they've got to look at those 2 games as the catalyst, really.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, Dean. As you said, after the international break, a couple of winnable fixtures there for Sheffield United. And in defence of Wilder and his players, they have had a tough start to the season. Last 3 games, like you said, Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea, probably wouldn't expect them to pick up many points, even though they did perform really well against those teams last season. And in places, they took the lead at Anfield, they took the lead at Stamford Bridge, obviously went on to lose those games. So something there for Sheffield United to try and recapture that form that they showed last season. I think, like you mentioned, injuries have been really harmful to Sheffield United. Jack O'Connell, he plays that marauding left-sided centre-back, goes unnoticed really what he does for the team. So many blocks and so many creating chances as well. While Enda Stevens has been drafted in there sometimes, and he's not a centre-back, he's more your wing-back, I think, for that one. And also, I think probably Dean Henderson's been a big miss, having gone back to Manchester United. Had a brilliant campaign last year, one of the best keepers in the Premier League. Aaron Ramsdale's obviously come back to Sheffield United from Bournemouth in the summer. He's come under a bit of scrutiny lately. I think of that performance against Chelsea, probably to blame for a few of the goals as well. But for me, I think Sheffield United will be okay coming into the season. Do you think, for you, Dean, they've got enough there to stay up?
I would imagine so, yeah. I think that it's important that you do give Chris Wilder the chance to do it. I mean, the only reason they're on this platform is because he's led them there, been there for 4.5 years. He definitely deserves the chance to turn this around. And I think that it really, when you are in trouble, it really does matter who's in charge of you, and just understanding the squad. I think definitely that Sheffield United having Chris Wilder is a positive thing.
Yeah, it's been probably the first real bump in the road for Wilder at Sheffield United. He's just enjoyed success, bringing them up from League One, Championship, Premier League. So it's going to be a real test of his managerial credentials. And he's been tipped for big things, Chris Wilder, but this is probably the first real negative he's had to deal with. So we'll see if he can come out the other end and get Sheffield United moving up that table after the international break. Also, another manager under pressure, like we mentioned last week, Scott Parker. Who would want to be a manager, Dean? The highs and lows of football. He got that big first win last Monday against relegation rivals West Brom, and then Saturday night, the 1-0 down to West Ham, dying seconds of the game, they get a penalty to maybe earn a valuable point. Then Ademola Lookman steps up and tries a Panenka, which was pretty comfortably saved by Fabianski in the West Ham goal, and that was the chance gone for Fulham. What do you make of Fulham? Big win on Monday and then agonising defeat on Saturday. It's just unbelievable, just the fortunes of football.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that things look a lot better than a week ago when we were talking about Scott Parker's future. I mean, West Brom were worse than I actually expected, I have to say. And in that game, I feel like things started to come together for Fulham, and they got the confidence that they needed. They were actually really unlucky not to get a draw from the West Ham game, not just because of the penalty miss with the last kick of the game, but the way they applied themselves all over the pitch was much, much better. They're actually looking like a Premier League side now. I'd say for the first time, actually, that display at West Ham, there were signs that okay, they look like they could belong here. And they've completely overhauled the team now. Areola in goal was great. The defence has been completely overhauled, and that's starting to take shape now, and that looks a lot more secure. Tom Carey looks like he's got a bit more life in him now. He's driving forward again. If Mitrovic can start scoring for Fulham again, I think they'll have a chance. Somehow right now there are teams below them and around them, so that there is hope for Fulham, despite the fact it has been a really poor start. And I think that Scott Parker is slowly trying to work out what his best team is, what his best formation is. And we'll see after the international break if they can start to build something.
Yeah, talking of that after the international break, not to worry you, Dean, have you seen Fulham's fixtures for the next 4 games? Pretty daunting one. Pretty daunting. Everton, Leicester, Man City, Liverpool in the next 4 games. Even the most optimistic fans probably not expecting many points from those.
No, I think, obviously I am a Fulham fan. The only thing you could say about looking at those games is that you don't really expect too much. I mean, when Fulham fans looked at the schedule at the start of the season, it looked like quite a nice start, to be honest. And it looked like there were the games there that you should be picking up points from. So when you don't, it's really demoralising. Now we're going to have the flip of that. Any point we pick up is a complete bonus. So that's how I'm looking at it, Pete. Stop trying to get me down.
Sorry, I don't want to get you down too early in the week as well. Stay positive. Probably the first change you'll make is get Mitrovic back on those penalties, I think.
Hope so, yeah. Good point.
Scott Parker will be working in that during the international break as well. But like we said, the international break, the final one of the year, it's normally a graveyard for managers. And I think switching our focus to the Championship, probably the first manager who could be under real threat of heading to that graveyard, Philip Cocu of Derby, under real pressure at Pride Park. Obviously, there's a bit of optimism off the field with this takeover seemingly going ahead of Sheikh Khalid, who is the cousin of the Manchester City owner Sheikh Mansour. So positive signs for Derby there, but there's no real positive signs on the pitch, slumping to that defeat to Barnsley at the weekend. That's 7 defeats from their opening 11 games. Rock bottom of the table. I think the writing's on the wall for Cocu. I can't see him surviving this international break. Do you think he's on his way out then, Dean?
I mean, the good news for Cocu is that, from what I'm told, that the current regime don't really want to sack him while this takeover is ongoing. So that's good news for him. The bad news, I would say, for him is that as soon as the takeover happens, he's gone. And if the takeover falls through, I still think he'll be gone. So I think right now he's basically a dead man walking, and it's just a case of how long he's going to stay in that position. It's not good for Derby. I mean, there have been problems with formation, tactics. They're just changing things around too frequently. The manager himself has questioned the passion and the willingness of his players, which is never a good sign. 11 games into the season, they've only scored 5 goals. I think they got the worst XG in the league. They've only kept 1 clean sheet. So you look at that and you think, well, if you're a new owner and you're coming into the club. The team seems broken. The easiest way to try and fix that is to be, right, you're gone. We'll get a new boss and we'll see if he can turn it around. So, no, it's really not looking good for Cocu.
Yeah, I think so. One of the reasons he probably hasn't lost his job up till now is, from what I'm hearing, is he's one of the highest paid managers in the Championship. I think he's on even more money than Frank Lampard was on. And before this potential takeover for Derby, obviously finances have been tight for Mel Morris and the rest of the board there. So probably thinking we can't really afford to Philip Cocu right now. That might change now with this takeover seemingly happening. And like you said, Dean, when a new owner comes in, they've got their own ideas, their own plans, and they normally have a new manager in their sights as well. And Cocu, I don't think, could have too many excuses if he was to lose his job. I think the form has been pretty disastrous. Derby were probably tipped to be in amongst the playoffs, I think, this season at least, with the likes of Wayne Rooney there and everything else. So I think he's underperformed for me, and some of his last jobs haven't been great over in Turkey. He didn't do great either and stuff like that. So maybe he's been on a bit of a wane. Talking of Wayne Rooney's obviously there as player manager or player coach. He's probably lined up to take over, do you think, Dean?
You wouldn't be surprised, would you, if he got a chance? There's not been too much talk yet about what the new owners would exactly have in sight, but we do know that they're ambitious. I mean, having Wayne Rooney as your manager, it's pretty trendy, let's put it that way. I mean, all the big clubs are just putting a star name in charge now and hoping for the best. So why not? You know, if it's good enough for Juventus, it's good enough for Derby. Might not be a club legend, but he is a football legend, and he'd be getting huge headlines around the world if Wayne Rooney is your manager. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, if they gave Wayne Rooney the job.
Yeah, I can see Rooney following his old England teammates, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, into management in his own right. So I think that one could make sense to me. The rumour I've heard also is Derby man Steve McClaren could be maybe going back, part of the Rooney coaching team, maybe working under Wayne Rooney, which would make a lot of sense as well. Obviously, McClaren's been there quite a few times at Derby to varying success, but he knows the club. He's probably better on the coaching field rather than being a manager. So if he went in there, took the coaching responsibilities while Rooney can take care of the managerial things, that could be the possible dream team that Derby have got in mind to get their season back on track. But yeah, I think by the time we start again our next episode, I think Philip Cocu will probably be out of a job, but we'll wait and see. And that one, sticking to the Championship, another manager under pressure is Queen's Park Rangers manager Mark Warburton. The R's are lying in 18th place in the table, coming off the back of a 3-1 defeat to Blackburn at the weekend. Just 6 points off the relegation zone as well, Dean. I've got a bit of sympathy for Mark Warburton at QPR myself. I don't know what the expectations are there at Loftus Road. He's dealing with major financial restrictions. He's lost his best player in Eze to Crystal Palace in the summer without really replacing him as well. What is realistic for QPR this season, do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, to be honest with you. I mean, they're 18th in the league now. The worrying fact about that is that the league's actually probably not as strong as it was last season, so you'd expect them to be punching a little higher than that. But yeah, what are their objectives this season? They're not going to be challenging for promotion. And if QPR expected him to be doing that, then they probably had their sights set too far, because it was never really going to happen with this squad. I think just surviving kind of mid-table is probably about where they should be. And at a time when, you know, the finances and everything around football, particularly at that level, is so insecure right now, it's probably not bad to just be happy to see through a year. I think there are concerns about, you know, how long do they really imagine that Warburton is in charge anyway? And he signed a 2-year contract, I think, when he went into the job. So is this going to be his last season anyway? I think, to be honest, Warburton is quite lucky in the sense that fans aren't allowed in stadiums right now. I think that might actually buy him a little more time. I think he'd be under more pressure if QPR fans were in the ground, because I've noticed that on social media that they do seem to be losing patience a little bit. The question is, I guess, who comes in if you do change again? For me, and I mean, it's a name that I've had mentioned to me before Warburton came in, and I think it'll come up again, is Gareth Ainsworth. For me, that is the type of manager that, you know, he has roots in the club. He's proven himself over a long period of time at Wycombe. I think he's the second longest serving boss in the Football League, actually. He's been there about 8 years. Obviously taken Wycombe to new heights. He's probably ready for a new job. So with that in the background, it's probably becoming tempting. I think that's probably one thing that QPR are trying. When they start to look around now, what would we do? People like that are going to be sat there waiting.
Yeah, Ainsworth would be the obvious choice. Be very popular with QPR fans as well. If he was to come in, done an amazing job at Wickham. Nobody expected them to win promotion to the Championship, and starting to find a bit of form now in the Championship with a couple of wins now under their belt as well. I still think Ainsworth, I think he's the lowest paid manager in the league as well. So I'm sure QPR could offer him a decent, lucrative deal, maybe to persuade him to return to Loftus Road. But yeah, he'd be the ideal fit for me if the QPR board, Les Ferdinand, and everybody decided Warburton was no longer the man. But again, in defence of Warburton, I think he's brought in a lot of young players from the youth squad in there as well. So he's dealing with probably the youngest squad in the Championship as well, and he's given these young players a chance. And his style of football is not bad either. He does try to play good attacking football, keeps the ball on the ground as well. But like you said, if things were to be different, I think he reminds me of Solskjaer a bit. Warburton, it's a strange thing. Whenever he needs a result, he normally seems to pull one out just to ease the pressure on him. So he did that the other day against Derby when they got that 1-0 win as well, just to pile the pressure on Cocu. But yeah, Warburton, I think come the end of the season, if he's still in the job, maybe that'll be decision time for QPR to make a decision on where they're going and what direction the club is going in as well. But yeah, talking of Mark Warburton, he knows all the pressure of the old firm up in Scotland, and one man who is under intense pressure right now is Celtic boss Neil Lennon. He's probably under pressure for quite a few reasons. His own side's form has been very disappointing. The form across the road of the old firm rivals Rangers has put him under the spotlight. They're flying right now, 9 points clear at the top of the table, albeit Celtic have 2 games in hand, while also the pressure on Lennon to deliver this historic 10 in a row is pretty massive as well, and doesn't seem like it's working out so far this season. It's been a disaster for them in Europe, and the home form's been really disappointing. I think it's the first time they've lost 3 games at Celtic Park in a row for the first time in 30 years, which is unheard of really up at Celtic as well. They've always been proud of their home record, especially in Europe. But I think a bit like QPR, no fans there has probably hurt Celtic in some respects. And on the flip side of that, maybe Celtic fans will be calling for Neil Lennon's head as well after the current state of affairs. So where do you think the problems have been for Celtic this year?
Well, you mentioned European nights. That's certainly been a problem. The Sparta Prague defeat is something that seems to have really riled fans. All we've got at the moment is the social media platform to gauge how fans are feeling, and Lennon out has been trending quite frequently, to be honest with you. I think that they're not only fed up with the results, they're fed up with the fact that at times the team have barely been able to string 2 passes together. It's been really inconsistent. At the weekend, they actually played okay and they got a good win. But are they going to follow that up and really put pressure on Rangers? That's the frustration, especially with Rangers doing so well, like you say. And where do they turn next? You know, that is always a tough question, especially halfway through a season and trying to catch Rangers. You've got to bring in belief, but you've also got to bring immediate results.
Yeah, all results are key there. I think if you lose a game up in Scotland, either Celtic or Rangers manager, you're coming under pressure straight away. Just looking at the betting, we've got Eddie Howe, 11 to 10 favourites for that job. He's obviously out of work after leaving Bournemouth. We've got Gordon Strachan, former Celtic manager, 5 to 1. Steve Clarke, the current Scotland manager, 6 to 1. While Celtic legend Henrik Larsson's 10 to 1. A lot of Celtic fans calling for Eddie Howe, Dean, maybe to go up there and get things going again up at Parkhead. Do you think Eddie Howe would be interested in that job, or would he be a good appointment as well?
Yeah, I think he'll be very cautious about which job he takes next, but I also think that it could be a really good fit. I think he wants a fresh challenge that's completely different from what he was going through at Bournemouth. And, you know, I think there's too much familiarity in the end, probably at Bournemouth, probably cost him. He probably almost been too much part of the woodwork, if you like. Everything that in the club was built around him. And sometimes you do need to step away from that again. I know he's tried it once before and it didn't work out, but he does at some point have to go and be successful somewhere else. And he's a very good coach and he's a good manager. I think that what would be really good for him, probably ahead of people like Henrik Larsson, I understand the emotional connection with somebody like that coming in, but the connections that Howe has within the game to whether it's coaching staff, whether it's players he can bring in, whether it's just people with a vision that can help Celtic. He's got all of that in place already. He's very young, very forward thinking. And I think that would probably bring about a quicker turnaround in the culture as well as the results quite quickly. And I think that's probably what he's got over a lot of the managers that you listed there.
Yeah, like Eddie Howe, lovely style of football that he plays, which Celtic fans would really enjoy. It would almost be a bit like what Brendan Rodgers brought up to Celtic when he was there, the free-flowing, attacking football, and the Celtic fans have missed that probably over the last couple of seasons with Neil Lennon's side not able to replicate that as well. But I've just got concerns about Eddie Howe. I'm not sure he'd be able to deal with the Goldfish Bowl life up in Glasgow of your total focus, and if things do go wrong, the press up there can jump all over you as well. So I think Eddie Howe, ideally, he's probably sitting at home now waiting to see what opportunities come up in the Premier League, to see what managers might lose their job there. I think that'll be his top priority. But like you said, Celtic's a massive job, massive club, and I think for a lot of managers out there looking back into work, it would be an attractive proposition for them as well. But as it stands, Neil Lennon's still there. He'll be looking to close that gap on Steven Gerrard and Rangers over the next few weeks as well. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of changes, not just on the managerial front, but the player front probably in the next few weeks as well. But thanks for joining us again for episode 2 of Touchline Talk, and we'll be back next week for more news and speculation on all things going on in football across the country.